Welcome to the G5 Hive and the next installment of our Worker Bee series, where we deep dive into the G5 college football landscape with the folks that know the teams the best. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe button. And if you're listening in podcast form, please rate and review. Today, we'll be taking a look at the Bowling Green Falcons, who are coming off a 7-6 season that included a big win at Georgia Tech to get the G5 a win against the Power 5 schools. And they just wrapped up their 2024 spring practice with their spring game on April 6th. We have a special guest joining us today. Welcome to the show, BJ Fischer, blogger at Falcon Blog, and he can be found at Orange and Brown on X. Welcome to the show, BJ.
Hey, thanks. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Always a good time. I like that video. That got my heart pumping a little bit, so that was good.
Yeah, I'm glad you enjoy it. I was talking with someone yesterday, and I started kind of doing these special intro videos for each one, and then I was like, yesterday or the day before, I was kind of regretting it, having to make 64 special videos.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it certainly adds a nice touch.
It does.
And at the end of the day, I do enjoy them. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started blogging about the Bowling Green Athletics?
So I'm a lifelong Bowling Green fan. I grew up in Bowling Green. I went to my first Bowling Green game in 1971. We lost to Xavier, which you don't know that Xavier did have football at the time. So my mother tells a story. I was just a little kid, and they went to the BG Toledo game, and they came home, and I stayed home, and I came running out, and I said, "Who won?" And they said Toledo won. And I ran up and locked myself in my room, and I wouldn't come out for the rest of the night, and which is still approximately the response I have when we lose to the Rockets. So no, it's been a long-standing thing. And then, certainly after Meyer left, I was, starting to sort of get kind of into it, kind of heavy, and I decided to start the blog, and which. Believe it or not, this will be the 20th year that I've
that's awesome.
Blogged on Bowling Green football and men's basketball mostly, and it's been great. I've met a lot of people doing it, and it's stuff that I would be paying attention to anyway. So you might as well write it up. So it's and I graduated from Bowling Green. My son graduated from Bowling Green. We really have I have a lot of appreciation and affinity for the university, and proud of what they do, and I can say it makes me happy. In bad season, good season, it makes me happy to be in the stadium.
No, that's awesome. Like we were talking before, how the MAC really kind of lacks coverage. So it's great, to see folks like yourself kind of covering the schools you love, and sharing the information with other people when they just can't find it in other places.
It's increasingly difficult, and especially like we were saying earlier, we used to have a blog roundtable with 7 or 8 of the schools had a regular blog, and it just sort of petered out. There's still some, but we mostly, I enjoy it, and it's a quiet time now. Mostly just covering guys leaving in the portal, and hopefully shortly start to cover some guys coming in.
Absolutely. Well, let's start talking about a little bit of football. Let's start with the group that leads the Falcons offense, the quarterback. So the top 2 quarterbacks, Connor Bazelak and Camden Orth, were out for the spring. What can you kind of tell us about their injuries and maybe how their recovery is going and a timeline for when they might be back?
Yeah, so Coach Loeffler has said that they will both be ready for fall camp. And that's good news, maybe even a little bit earlier to start some conditioning and some of the, I'm never sure exactly what they're allowed to do, but it's more than it used to be in the off season. Right. And so they're going to be able to maybe start a little bit early, but definitely for fall camp. And they've both, Bazelak has played at Missouri and Purdue, and Orth has been in our system for a couple of years. So I think they'll be able to be all right. They were injured both of them battled injuries all year. They were both injured for the Michigan game. We had a walk-on freshman playing against Michigan, and the coaches said they had to yell on the sideline what the read was because he had literally, hardly even practiced.
Yeah.
So they're both going to be and coaches indicated those are the starters. They do use them as a change of pace a little bit. Like Orth is a little bit more of a runner. He can throw, and the natural analogy would be to Tim Tebow, which Loeffler was his quarterbacks coach at Florida. So he'll come in for some running and some change of pace. But if Basile gets injured or hurt, Orth is capable of moving the offense for sure.
So, it's kind of a blessing, I guess, with those two out because it opened up some opportunities for some other younger quarterbacks in the spring, particularly a redshirt freshman, Lucian Anderson III. How did he look in the spring, and what can you kind of tell us about his style of play?
Well, Lucian Anderson. So the old joke is that the backup quarterback is the most popular guy in the team. Since we have two quarterbacks, our number 3 quarterback is the most popular guy in the team to the fans, right? So Lucian Anderson has played in a couple of scrimmages. It's 3-on-3s at that point, right? But he's has shown himself to have some ability, and he's a little more athletic. And we have not had a true dual threat quarterback since Josh Harris was here, right? Maybe, most of our coaches, Clausen and all those guys really prefer to drop back quarterback, didn't want the quarterback out running around a lot. So he is very much more of a dual threat quarterback in the line of a not Daquan Finn style of play from UT. Not that we're obviously comparing the two of them right now, but
Sure.
And it was really good for him. He got all the reps as number 1, right? And so they said that they still think he needs to work on his progressions, which he's got hopefully the season to do, and then both Orth and Bazelak will be gone, and the hope is that Anderson will be able to step in there. He's the first high school quarterback that Loeffler's recruited that has gotten this far. He's had a lot of struggle with high school quarterbacks. Most of them have been transfers, and in this case, but he got a huge break, and they told him to play like he was going to be the number 1, and I think he got the right attitude out of it.
Awesome. Talking about the running game, you guys do return longtime standout Terrion Stewart, but you do lose top backup Teron Keith, who ironically is back in the portal again after a brief stay there at Western Kentucky. Stewart was injured at the end of last season, missing the last 4 games. Kind of what can you tell us about his injury and how his recovery is progressing?
Yeah, I mean, he had surgery. He did not practice this spring. He will be back for the fall. He is just an absolute game changer on his elusiveness. Coach says he's a pain in the ass to tackle, and his elusiveness. And with our line, he needs to be elusive some of the time, right? I mean, it's a not wasted skill. He is just extremely difficult to tackle, and the year before last year actually took a year off, for mental health year. I know real details about what it was, but obviously you just want guys to get well, right? I mean, it's just a college football game, and so hopefully we will be able to keep him healthy the whole year because he completely changes the whole dynamic. We had just a pretty terrible break in the spring. We have a running back. His name is Payshawn Wimberly, who is one of these guys that is just a model program guy. He's from Toledo. He has a 3.9. He's an architecture student, right? And he was the national special teams player of the year a couple of years ago, blocked a bunch of punts. And he was actually working out in the Keith role in the spring practices and doing really, really well. And then he just had a terrible, terrible freak injury and will be out for the season. And you hate to see it, not just because, of the team, but just because of what a good guy he is and, how beloved he is by his teammates. So there is one freshman. He's not even here. He didn't come in for the spring, so he'll be here in the fall. Nakia Amarchi, who's from the Lansing area, who was highly recruited. He's like 5'11", 190, so that's your sort of Teron Keith size. And Loeffler made some reference that we might be able to take one of the freshmen. If you're just trying to slide him into a relatively limited role like that, it's something they can pick up. And and you do. And we got Jason Patterson back, who's more of a heavier back. But, in today's game, you don't usually just run with one guy, right? I mean, you got to be able to rotate, even if Stewart gets 30 touches. Which we would love, right? I mean, we would if that shows things are going right. So Anyway, yeah, it'll be interesting to see. But I know they were crushed with the Payshon Wimberly injury. He's just a great guy, and it was just a terrible blow.
Yeah. You see, like I said, you hate to see that for the kid as well as the team.
Yep.
Moving over to the wide receivers, they also took some losses this offseason between graduation and transfers, losing their top 3 receivers from a year ago, and Odie Hilaire, Austin Osborne, and Abdul Fatih Ibrahim. They do bring in a couple of transfers from the Power 5. They bring R.J. Garcia coming over from Kansas State and Malcolm Johnson Jr. coming from Auburn. What can you kind of tell us about this wide receiver room from the spring?
Yeah, so I think this would be an area that we are maybe on the offense, along with the line, most concerned about. We'll talk about tight ends in a minute, but in the Toledo game, they put Mosley, the young man who's going to be a first-round draft pick tomorrow. They put him on Fannin for the second half, our star tight end. And we didn't have a lot else to work with in terms of getting guys open, and we don't mind running the ball a lot, but you do have to be able to get the ball out there. And wide receiver is a depth position, right? So there are a lot of formations where you got to have 4 guys out there, right? So we are a little bit concerned about, I think we're happy with the 2 guys, and they seem to be making a good adjustment. And, if everything's clicking well and the line is blocking and the running game is going, hopefully they'll be able to create some space just through all that. Another name to keep an eye on is a kind of a hybrid guy, wide receiver tight end named Finn Hogan, who had that unbelievable one-handed catch in the Georgia Tech game that is on all the highlight reels. He has a lot of, he was injured shortly after that and really didn't play again. So he's somebody they'll definitely be counting on, but we fear we lack the burner, the guy who goes right down the sideline and stretches the defense. And we're going to have to see whether somebody can build in that role, but that's the concern we have.
With the concern at wide receiver and the changes there, obviously one position that can really help that a lot is tight end, and Bowling Green, in my opinion, returns probably the best tight end in college football, and that's Harold Fannin Jr. How did he look this spring?
We are so lucky that he did not go to another school, right? Because he could have, right? I mean, and I don't, we certainly don't blame people who take their opportunities, Cassius Howell or whomever, but he's decided to stay at least one more year, right? And he is a very, very difficult guy to handle from that position, because if you put a linebacker on him for strength, they can't guard him, can't cover him, and if you try to put a corner on him for the speed, he can't. He overpowers them, right? And that's why it took the UT guy, it took an All-American, really, and guys, a first-round draft pick to shut him down. Fannin can even come out of the backfield, right? They'll put him back as a running back sometimes.
They're very creative in how they scheme ways to get him touches, and like you said, putting him in the backfield is one of the ways to do that.
You have got to sit there and think, what crazy ways do I have to get this ball in this guy's hand, right? Because when Dave Clausen was here, he said the whole strategy is to get the ball in the hands of your best player in space, right? And so we love Harold Fannin, and we're really looking forward to him having a big year. And he's good. He's a guy we caught. He's from Youngstown, Ohio, and he was one of these guys that a lot of G5 schools will pick up, right? He was a little under recruited. Maybe there were some eligibility issues, and then he came through at the last minute, and we'd been on him, and he appreciated that, and he came over here, and he's making it work. So, and we've had Quentin Morris, who played at Bowling Green, plays for Buffalo now, and so we've had some decent tight ends, and in its finest version, the BG offense is designed. He really wants to play like 12 personnel and have 2 tight ends who are both hybrid, right? Both can block in, and that puts the defense in a lot of positions. And we have Levi Gazarek also, who is a 2-sport player, came to Bowling Green because they wouldn't let him play baseball at Michigan State. He's also a good player. We lost Andrew Bench into the portal, but so we should be pretty solid at tight end, and we're going to need it, right? So you just hope that you get some protection. Maybe those guys are eating up some coverage, and then your receivers can get open, and you can get some, because you got to get some chunk plays to survive at football at this level. You're 3 yards in a cloud of dust. Nobody can sustain that.
Yeah, I think it sounds like Harold Fannon's due for a huge year. Just with the concerns there at receiver, the loss of Teron Keith as well.
Yep.
And so yeah, I mean, he should be a first team All American in my opinion. Coming in, especially preseason. So
he's an outstanding player. I love to watch him play, and we're blessed to have him, and he will not lack for opportunities this year. So pray for his health.
Yes. The offensive line, moving over to those guys, they do return 4 of 5 starters from last year, and as a group only allowed 2.15 sacks per game last season. How did the spring kind of go for the offensive line? Were they able to build some more depth? Or
So the depth issues, and we lost one guy, but it was a position we rotated a little bit at. So I think we've got some. I think we're all right in terms of having guys to step in. We brought in a guy from Merrimack named Nick Reimer, and he is he made a really good impression. I think he has the ability to provide some depth in there, and hopefully we did more rotation last year on the O-line than what you usually see, right? I mean, it's funny, you watch a game, the defensive linemen are coming out like a hockey game, right?
Yeah,
they're switching every play, and the offensive guys never change, right? So we did do a little bit of that. The line, hopefully they've had a year to get stronger, and in the weight room, the line has been. So going back to Loeffler's first couple of years, the line was just really, really bad. It coming out of the Jinx years, we just had nothing. And, we had a decent quarterback in Matt McDonald, but he never had a chance to show what he could do because he was under, he just never had any time to throw.
Pressure.
And we had no running game either for the same reason, right? Because we had nobody clearing any space. So they have gradually gotten a little better. They're still for whatever it's worth. I mean, they're in the about the middle or lower part of the conference on all the Pro Football Focus rankings. So hopefully they'll pick it up a little bit this year. You cannot win without being able to win your share of battles on the offensive line. It doesn't matter how, and you can have an amazing quarterback and he can bail you out sometimes, but the game plan really doesn't work unless you can protect your quarterback and create space. And I was thinking this morning about, we had a situation in the Toledo game where it was 5 minutes left. We had the ball on our 31. We're ahead by 6. The only way we win that game is to finish the game with the ball, right? This fourth quarter, we ran 3 plays, made no yards. 2 of them were passes. We were so sure we couldn't run the ball that we didn't even try because it would have run the clock too. But we were that. And that's the situation we got to go in, where the next time we get in that situation, we got to be able to grind out 3 or 4 first downs. And Absolutely. Then we'll know we're really the championship team that we're trying to be. And that'll partly stuck because Toledo's outstanding on the defensive front. So that was a big challenge. But if you're going to be a championship team, that's what you got to do.
For sure. You have a lot of losses. You got some injuries. But if you were to pick one player on the offense to kind of have a breakout type year in 2024, who would that be?
So for a breakout season, is in terms of if you think about a guy who we really don't think about that much,
sure,
it would be Finn Hogan. I think he's just got some tremendous. He's a transfer from Central Michigan. I think he's got a tremendous amount of ability, and I think that he's going to pick up on a lot of open space due to those other things. And I think we're going to hopefully see Finn really turn into a top flight producer and somebody who next year, we're talking about on the G5 Hive about that. So
absolutely. Sounds good. All right, let's move over to the defense, where they lose 3 of their top 4 tacklers from 2023, and linebacker Darren Anders, who seems like he had been there forever.
Yeah, he was on the faculty by the time you left.
Cornerback Jalen Husky and Devon Ferguson. And like I said, for the first time in forever, they're going to have to kind of get a new man in the middle of that defense to kind of replace Anders. Who can we kind of expect to man that middle linebacker role in 2024?
Yeah, I think that the job was won by Brooke Horn, who was the backup, and and I think we can figure that out because the guy under him on the depth chart went in the portal after spring practice. So usually,
that's usually a good sign.
Yes.
They didn't win the job.
Yeah, you didn't come out like you thought you were going to come out with, right? And and he's been a solid player. Darren Anders and he actually went in the portal and came back a couple of years ago. He is somebody who just was unbelievably solid in there. But we do have we have Joseph Sipp Jr., who I think is going to be effective on the left linebacker. And one guy that we lost, you didn't mention, was Cassius Howell, who was our sack artist,
linebacker,
and really was just outstanding. And he made a bunch of huge, and he's going to Texas A&M. We are going to get back Demetrius Hardiman, who was 2 years ago our big pass rush guy, and was injured in the Michigan game and missed the rest of the season. But he's going to be back, and I think we're going to be hopefully he'll be able to step into the role that Howell played, and be able to get us. The defense last year, and the real story to the success the team had was creating turnovers. We had such a great turnover margin. We were 5th in yards per play and 3rd in scoring on offense, and that's because we were getting some field position from the turnovers. So hopefully we'll be able to get that. We also had to change our defensive line coach left to go to Rutgers, and we have a new coach coming in there. And it's Cornell Brown, who actually played in the I think he did some down in Virginia, right? I think
he came from Virginia.
Yeah. So he's the D-line coach now. He worked with Leffler when they were at Virginia Tech, and so he'll be in there. He's certainly got some experience. They were the guy we had before was really popular, Julian Campini. He went to, like I said, Rutgers, and he was somebody who was, and one of these younger roll around in the dirt type coaches, and since the end of the season, we've had a couple other linebackers go, and so I think the defense is going to be a challenge, and but overall, it's been the offense that's been causing us the problems, keeping us from winning. Not that it's always terrible, and so I think I'm confident that I'm hopeful that they'll be able to keep those guys going. We did bring in a couple of D-backs in the portal, and we're hopeful that those guys, 3 of them actually, so those guys will be able to slip in. Husky went to Maryland, so he was a really good player we discovered. So, and another guy I think might be primed, who really came on late in the season, is Avi McGarry, who's a Sam linebacker who he'll have one more year left, and he seems to have taken his time to really get ready to play.
So we kind of talked a little bit about the linebackers. What about the defensive line? In recent years, they produced current Green Bay Packer Carl Brooks. Was there anyone that kind of stood out, on that defensive line? And, got to ask the question, it's not likely at a G5, but is there another Carl Brooks type coming down the pipeline?
Well, I wish. Boy, what a player he was. And again, one of these guys we pick up because, he maybe didn't have the greatest resume coming out of high school, but and Coach Leffler said when Leffler got here, he said, if you'd have told me that guy was going to be a captain, I would have told you you're out of your mind, right? And yet it turned, he grew up, right? Which is what you're supposed to do in college, and it's kind of environment you want for any of your students, right? So the line is actually, not in too bad a shape, and we have most of the top flight guys back, and I thought we performed pretty well in terms of controlling the line of scrimmage. Plus, we get Hardiman back. He's a sort of of a hybrid and linebacker. You can never tell anymore what those specifically are. But, Dontrez Brown and Anthony Hawkins and Ali Saad and Jordan Porter and even Billy Roberts, who came on a little bit late in the season. We're going to have some pretty solid play up front. And just like on offense, if you're getting blown off the ball, you have no chance in the sport of football, right? If you can hold the blocks, then your linebackers can make some plays. And if you can get some pressure, it's a whole heck of a lot easier to be a cornerback for sure.
We talked a little bit about the cornerbacks. You lost the two All-MAC performers in Husky and Ferguson, and you talked about some guys you thought that might step up there. There's one defensive back that I'm a big fan of. He's a transfer, and that was safety CJ Brown. I guess 2 years ago he had a 100+ tackle season. I don't know what happened with him last year, but for whatever reason he kind of fell out of favor there, and he ends up at Bowling Green. Have you heard anything about him and what maybe his role might be for Bowling Green?
Yeah, it's interesting. He was not he's from up in Michigan. We stole him from a MAC school. We always like that. So I would think that he would be somebody we would definitely be looking for, right? And that's a classic situation, right? So he's at NIU and he was all MAC, right? And then he disappears.
And then he just fell off the face of the earth last year.
And there's a perfect place for him, right? Where Ferguson was in the back of that defense, right? And Davon Ferguson was a really good player. And I expect Davon not to get drafted, but I expect him to get a UDFA, deal on Saturday or Sunday when they get around to that. So CJ Brown, I think, has a lot of potential and would be again, is a proven player, and whatever reason they lost interest in him, and hopefully we can fit him in there, and because it's definitely a position of need for sure.
All right. If you had to pick one defensive player to have a breakout type season in 2024, who would it be?
Yeah, I would go with Avi McGarry at the Sam linebacker. He was really, hearing his name called a lot towards the end, and I think he's going to be I think he's got the ability to really move in there. And again, you rotate your linebackers a lot. There's plenty of room for guys to be moving in and out. So that would be my pick he's also an outstanding special teams player too. So I believe he'll make a big contribution this year.
All right. We've talked about this before the show with the transfer portal and the NIL becoming so prominent in college football. Can you tell us about the impacts you've seen it have there at Bowling Green?
Yeah, it's really tough, right? It is you start to feel almost like you're a minor league, for these P4 schools, and you don't. I just. Every time one leaves, I always say on the blog, we wish them well, right? I mean, I don't blame, if Cassius Howell can get, I don't know what he's making, but let's say it's, he's probably not going to play in the pros. There's the only chance to make any money playing football. If Texas A&M will pay him that, and that's what he wants to do, God bless him. Go to it. That's what, that's what you or I might have done. That's what we would tell our sons to do, right? So it's tough on us. Bowling Green, I don't think really has any NIL presence at all, right? We are the lowest funded football program, even in the MAC. We have enough, our guys are working day and night just to raise the money to keep the facilities up and that kind of stuff, much less. And we have an NIL, but it's been based on student experience, I should say. We do have a little collective, and we're working on providing, career focused and things like that, but I don't think there's any cash payments being made or minimally, right? So it's really tough. The year before that, we lost wide receiver to Arkansas, Tyrone Broden. We had Jordan Anderson go to UCLA. And sometimes these guys are depth, right? And they don't maybe get in as much as they might have been told, but sometimes Jalen Grant went to Purdue, made a bunch of starts. So it's just a tough time to be in the G5 level and the immediate transfer. So now, we've had a couple of guys transfer who just transferred to us last year, right? And they stayed for 1 year.
Oh, yeah.
It's like pro sports, but with nobody has a multi-year contract.
Absolutely. Right? And the NCAA just, I think, ratified it like 2 days ago, where they can transfer as much as they want as long as they're in good academic standing.
And so that, yeah, they're like, and so I mean, I hear some stuff about, as crazy as it might seem, that one way would be to get the players in a union, and then you could negotiate an agreement where they would agree, okay, we'll only move twice in return for these, like the pros have, right? I mean, you got,
that's definitely where it seems like it's headed. They're going to be employees of the university, and it's just going to be like the NFL. They're going to have a players association and a collective bargaining agreement and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and that way that will at least stretch it out. It will, however, take I don't know. I mean, so I'm a little bit old fashioned in terms of when I went to school in Bowling Green in the 80s, and you'd walk across campus and the guy would be there, and you maybe have classes with them. And I mean, I know they still go to class, but and you would, more so in basketball, but you would see the guy develop over 4 years and sort of, get to know him. And then on senior day, it'd be so sad. Half the guys who come across on senior day now have only played there 1 year, and maybe they came here and never even got in a game, right? We don't even know who they are, right? So it's a difficult time. We're one of the things that I think that, you can tell people, and our guys always thought they deserved a P5 offer, right? I mean, that's why we get the upsets we do against P5 schools, right? Because they always thought they deserved a P5 offer. So now you can say, look, come here, we'll develop you, and then in a couple of years, things work your way. Is an opportunity for you to move on if that's what you want to do. So it's tough, and it's not as much fun as it was, I don't think, but.
Sure.
You don't see me leaving. So I'll be in my seat when the game comes. So
with the transfer portal and the NIL, and fundraising and player, not only recruiting high school players, you're recruiting, players from other schools, and then you're trying to retain the players you have already on your team. It really seems like the head coach is kind of really becoming more of a general manager than a head coach. Is that kind of what's going on at Bowling Green, or do they have folks to kind of help with some of those other duties so that he can kind of be more hands-on with the actual coaching? Or
so we have more staff than we used to, but when you look down at an org chart for a P5 school and compare it to ours, right? I mean, they have departments of player personnel on these teams, right? We have maybe one guy who's in charge of player personnel, right? Graduate assistants. No, I think he's working as he says, his tail off. He is and he's all in, right? That guy does not have an off button. Leffler is going. He sleeps in his office. There's a little cot or a couch in there. I mean, he is a full go. And I think that there's, additional pressure, because I think things are set up this year as well as they've been. We're a little bit like I looked at the count the other day. I think we have a little over 40 guys who are in their last year of eligibility, much like, again, not to draw the comparison too far, Michigan had last year, right? With this, incredible. The schedule last year was just ridiculous. We had our toughest MAC games scheduled in between Michigan and Georgia Tech, right? And early this year we have an off week after we play A&M, I think. And now we got a very difficult game with Old Dominion, so we're not at all looking past that one, because that's going to be even looking back at last year, we played Liberty to open the season. That's what should have beaten them. We did not play a very good first half.
That game, and I should know this, but I don't. Is the games is at Bowling Green? Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I thought so. I was just trying to remember. I renewed my season tickets not long ago. I was like, pretty sure that's an away game.
Yeah. And it's we like to get, as fans, we want to get at least one G5 non-conference game. It's tough enough. Another thing that's tough from a Bowling perspective is that about half the teams in the MAC play 2 P5 games. Usually there's 1 or 2 that play 3. And the top teams, Toledo, Miami, Ohio, will only play 1. And that's a huge advantage in terms of, but we got to do it. We got to go get that. We got to have the money. And This year, the other one, I think, is Penn State. And But the good news is those are on separate weeks, and then we have Old Dominion coming out of and we have an off week in between Penn State and Texas A&M, and then we'll have played none of our conference games at all. No, they're not sandwiched into the early part of the season, and we have a old team. Leffler's been saying we have to get old, so this is an opportunity for him to show what he can do. He came into a terrible situation. The rebuild's taken probably a little longer than everybody hoped, but if he can put it together this year, it's also under the radar thing is the MAC got rid of divisions. So
yeah, I think the Sun Belt's the only conference that still has them.
In the old days, like last year, you could maybe have a slightly soft division and slide into the championship game, which I think we did in 13, and then beat the big Northern Illinois team right in Ford Field. So it's not so basically you got to look at a 7-1 or 6-2 season to make the championship game. There's talk about every game counting. And so we're going to have to be on. We're going to have to stay healthy, and we're going to have to solve those issues on the offense. But it is as favorable an outlook as we've had since the second Dino Babers year.
Now that the spring practice is over, we got the second portal window kind of open right now. Is there which position group or groups would you say is the most concerning?
Yeah, so I would hope that we are continuing to try to find a wide receiver. I would think that would be something you probably could find, right? And there are ways you can build those guys a limited role that will let them step in, relatively quickly. So I would love to see us go out and get a burner, as it were, on the outside, or somebody at least who's, tall and quick. I don't think you'll see anything on the offensive line. They've been working so hard at building the chemistry over all those years to get that put together that I don't think you might see somebody brought in for depth, but I don't think you're going to see anybody they bring in who they want to mess with in terms of it being a starter. And then the second thing, the last thing would be maybe somebody on as a linebacker. And, guys can pop loose now who, as we said, ended up on the wrong side of the depth chart. And Coach definitely said the last time he talked that they were still working the wires. But I don't think you see a quarterback. I don't think you'll see a running back. I don't think you'll see but we could definitely use a wide receiver or two. And I would think any other changes would be at linebacker.
We did mention some of the weaknesses or things that might be looking to improve there. What would you say is the main strength of the team?
So the main strength of the team last year was the ability to get turnovers, and that just made an enormous difference, right? We were joking earlier, we intercepted JT McCarthy 3 times. My joke is if they hadn't been stealing our signs, we had them. And I don't know. Harbaugh's dad was a Bowling Green great. Harbaugh's dad played at Bowling Green, and he grew up for a few years in Bowling Green. Anyway, the key was to get turnovers. Now, Phil Steele will tell you that if teams that succeed with a bunch of turnovers have a tendency to have a lower record the next year because there's skill involved, but it's not
so repeatable.
Yeah, and there's a level of luck, right?
Yeah.
Fumble bounces in your direction. How many interceptions are great plays? How many of them are tip balls that anybody could have caught, right? Once it got down there, right? So I would say that what I hope is that the real strength and the real foundational strength of this team would be the ability to run the ball. When you get to November and we're playing at night on MACtion nights and stuff, and it's a windy day on the plains of Bowling Green, the flattest place you'll ever be, you got to be able to run the ball. And hopefully our line is put together. And if we can run the ball, I think we'll be able to throw it well enough to win. But we need to be able to run the ball. So I'm hopeful that at the end of the year, we say our strength was being able to run the ball.
Let's assume the season's over and you're kind of looking back on it. What would have to happen in 2024 for you to look back and say, yeah, the season was a success?
Yeah, I would. So we've and I tend to, upsetting Georgia Tech was great. I mean, it was awesome, but I tend to look at the conference schedule. Those are the teams we're supposed to beat. Those are the teams that are our peers. No, in no way in that, that are we. Did anybody build a team to beat Michigan, right? And in fact, to beat Georgia Tech. But so we're 5-3 the last two seasons in the MAC. 2 years ago, we were 5-3, even though we were outscored by like 60 points overall. And last year we got it to plus 35. So I think we're trending in the right direction. I would like to see us get at least to 6 conference wins, and then hopefully pick up the Fordham and, no offense, the ODU win, and end up with an 8-4 season. And hopefully at 6-2, have a shot at playing in the MAC championship game. That's so basically, you got, we're going to be at Toledo, which we beat them the last time we were up there. And both of the last 2 games have come down to one play at the end, right? It's been a great rivalry. Let's hope that, that it's our turn again. And, but then, Miami and Ohio, and, we need to, we're going to have to win some big games, which we didn't last year. We lost to the good teams and we beat all the terrible teams, right? So we're going to, what I want to see us beat some of the top tier teams in our conference, get to at least 6 conference wins, and have a credible conversation in November about playing in Ford Field.
Well, we've kind of covered Bowling Green from all facets here tonight, but is there anything else you want to share or think we should know about this 2024 Bowling Green football team?
Well, the only other thing I would say is that I think that Leffler has 2 years left on his deal, and he got extended before last season. But I think they'll be watching this one carefully. I think he took us from terrible to above average, right? And he's done it exactly the way he said it was going to do it. I think he has built a culture that you need, right? Which it's difficult to describe how terrible it was when he came in here, right? It was just so. But the question of whether or not he's the guy who's going to take us from better than average to the top, and again, there are a lot of barriers with the money and the NIL and all that kind of stuff, and the P5 games. But I think that there will be, if we were to end up 4-4 in the MAC, I think there might be some conversations. You hate to change directions because you could lose 40 guys off your roster, right?
Absolutely.
And
you can end up being worse off in terms of coach too.
There's no guarantee the next guy's better. That's for sure. So anyway, so that would be the only other thing. I think the special teams are solid. I think we're and I hope that we're experienced enough. We've grown enough on the line, and Terry Stewart can remain healthy because he's a game changer for sure.
Well, thank you again, BJ, for sharing your time and knowledge with us today. We greatly appreciate it.
My pleasure. Anytime. Good luck. If you come out to Bowling Green, let me know. I'll buy you a beer.
Sounds good.
All right.
If you're watching on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe button. And if you're listening in podcast form, please rate and review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Thank you all for your support. And until the next time, we are the G5 Hive.